Okay, so are there any particular environmental laws that you find annoying?
I'm from California, where environmental laws are like part of our bureaucracy and they just kind of slow things down. I feel like one of the ones that's particularly annoying is it seems like they protect animal life to an insane degree. I think two laws are that were passed was one was protecting a group of ducks like in some of the Sacramento rice fields and valleys, and because against duck season, against hunters going out there and shooting them. And so the ducks weren't killed basically. Like the hunters weren't allowed to go in and shoot the ducks for their hunting season. And so the duck population got out of control, an epidemic broke out, all the ducks died, and ducks don't exist in the valley anymore. So like in trying to be overkill and protecting animals and the ecosystem, I feel like a lot of the people who create these laws are more politically driven than like sensically driven. Like they don't use common sense, and they don't use true knowledge of environments and ecosystems in providing a lot of the laws that they do. I feel like another law that was kind of annoying, simply because it had to do with my work, was we were building a bridge in the Bay Area in California, and they were driving pile, which are like large shafts of steel, into the bottom of the bay, so that way they could create a foundational support. But in the bottom of the bay was a bed of granite. They didn't really know about it. So when they would drive the pile and it would hit the granite, it actually created shock waves. And the shock waves are so powerful that fish swimming nearby exploded. It literally blew up the fish in the water. And so the environmental control, they showed up on the scene, obviously, and they actually shut the project down and told them they weren't able to continue until they resolved a way to do it. And it took them through development and getting the materials and engineering a solution. It took them somewhere between 6 and 8 months, I think, which is basically 6 or 8 months that people in California, probably the same people that created the laws, were complaining about how heavy traffic was while this bridge was unconstructed. So I feel like the number of fish that would have been killed versus the inconveniences that we face, that might make me sound like a horrible person, but the number of fish that were killed versus the inconveniences that we faced when trying to finish that project were just kind of ridiculous, that it didn't make a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like creating shock waves and killing maybe a couple hundred fish is going to completely destroy the ecosystem for any period longer than when the shockwaves are actually occurring in the water.
Well, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it makes common sense to assume that if the fish feel a shockwave, they won't go towards the shockwave. So you might kill a couple hundred fish initially, but eventually the fish will move away.
Yeah.
So maybe not even a couple hundred fish would die.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
And so like laws like that, they just kind of seem like it's a bunch of people. It's kind of like that person in your class who always tries to make sure that they're right and that your answer was semi-incorrect. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Like those people, I'm not going to call them friends, I'm going to call them people that always try to assume dominance over a conversation, over a topic, just to prove they're right. Like, it didn't seem like it had anything to do other than neener, 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 we're the Environmental Protection Agency, and we're going to make sure that we're annoying to you.
Okay. Would you say that you would be more apt to follow an environmental law, or would you be more apt to be more environmentally friendly if you were to understand the reasons why we needed to be environmentally friendly?
That's kind of a tough question, because I would certainly prefer to have the choice. And I think in the long run, that will produce more environmentally friendly people. I think that that's the way to do it. However, when there is a law, I don't really have a choice but to obey it. And a lot of my interaction with people that actually affects the environment is really me buying products. And I don't have a whole lot of control over what companies do or don't do. So when they make the choice to be environmentally friendly, and they're very transparent about it, and they really truly do it, it's not just marketing. When they really are environmentally friendly, I make it a point to support their business, and it really is a selling point for me. However, when there's environmental laws, I'm not really happy about what they're doing. I don't think, oh, good job, but obviously changes what I buy because the companies change the way they do things.
Now, as I was going out and interviewing people, it seemed to me like the general attitude was that people were not a fan of environmental policies and laws. Now, I think this brings up a very good point, because most of my friends talked about how if they were given the opportunity to be educated about being more environmentally friendly, that they would be more apt to be environmentally friendly. So at this point, we probably have a majority of people actually being environmentally friendly because they're forced and coerced to do so through legislation. But I think that it would be much more effective for us as an American people to be educated about how to be more environmentally friendly. And if we were to be educated about that, then in the future, we'd be able to, instead of having these environmental policies and laws, we'd actually just have a people that were environmentally friendly, like, say, in Germany, that example that I gave to you. So, one last point that I want to make before I conclude is there is this book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And basically what Daniel Pink talks about in that book is he talks about the surprising truth about what motivates us. Now, the book is mainly geared towards business, but I think it has some application here, because there's one point that he makes in his book. He talks about how humans are not profit maximizers exclusively, but in addition, they are also purpose maximizers. So some of the examples that he gives examples of the open source software movement. He gives some examples of Wikipedia, and how people, when they feel like they are contributing to something, they're actually very apt to do something for the better, or to better the world, as opposed to just simply sitting in their own bubble and profit maximizing. Now, in his book, he also gives an example of a psychiatrist or a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics for proving that people weren't profit maximizers. And basically what he did is he went around the world and he performed an experiment. And the experiment was basically this. Person A would be offered, say, $10. And person A would have to offer a certain amount of that money to person B. Now, if person B accepted the offer, then they'd both get money. Person A would get the amount minus the amount that he offered to person B. But if person B rejected the offer, then person A and person B would get no money. Now, if we were simply profit maximizers, then person B would always accept the offer, because even 1 cent is greater than nothing. Even $1 is greater than nothing. But what this psychologist found was that that wasn't the case. And unless person B felt like they were getting a good portion of the deal, or a good deal, then they would reject it. And so even though they were rejecting money that they otherwise would not have had, they still chose to reject it because they felt they were being treated unfairly. So this again goes to show that people are purpose maximizers as opposed to profit maximizers. And in this instance, the purpose would be being treated fairly. And so I think that if we truly were educated on how we as individuals can help the environment, that it would be much more effective than if we were legislated upon, which is where we are right now. So, in conclusion, I think that it's a much better option for us to change the dominant social paradigm. Because even though corporations are motivated by profit, they are run by people who are purpose maximizers. So, if we were to change the dominant social paradigm, more than likely than not, we'd also be able to encourage a system of environmental sustainability. Currently, our system promotes legislation, which is a top-down approach. So when individuals are forced to do something, they may do it, but they're not happy about it. And they won't go beyond the call of duty. Whereas if you have more of an education approach from the bottom up, then people, not only will they meet the minimum standards, but, like they take care of their own property, they'll be more apt to go out and to be more environmental. And that's the entire point of this video. Education, not legislation.